Satvik, Satvik, you're on mute.
Good. It's been a long time hearing that, but yes, I think we'll start off first by introducing the person here. So I think first time I don't have a script as such to introduce someone, but let me tell you, Shantanu is one man. Even if I have a script, it takes me hours together to talk about him and talk about his achievements and all that. So in simple words, I can say first thing I would recognize Shantanu with is his brand, which he has started off. That's Read On. So Shantanu is founder of Read On, and he, as you all know, is about chartered accountancy, and is an all India rank 10, and he has mentored hundreds of students in various aspects of life, and especially when it comes to professional aspects. And next comes on, he's a startup consultant. And this is one of the most important aspects of Shantanu. That, as I mentioned, that it takes hours together if I have to start introducing him. He's an avid reader and a passionate writer and social entrepreneur. So this is how he defines himself too. And as I mentioned, that his brand Read On has been there from years to years and helping a lot of people understanding financial news that is called to be complicated, but he will ensure that it isn't when you read it. So thanks a lot, Shantanu, for taking your time. And I've been someone who has been in touch with him from 6 months, in fact, and those a lot of conversation has been so informative, so mind-boggling, and I can say a lot of them were eye-opening, and few career aspects which have changed in my life too. So I think this will declutter your mind and ensure that you read news like never before. So thanks a lot, Shantanu. And I think now I'll give you the rights and the whole session. So thank you for taking the time. Start.
Thank you, Satwik, for that awesome introduction. I want to point one thing out. It's never a person who can go through that journey alone. It's always been about building a team, creating communities, and making sure that that community and team has everything that they need to achieve the objective that they want to. And that's what we do at Read On. So I don't de-jargonify everything myself. The team does it. So kudos to my team. Kudos to some of them are here today. Kudos to the work that they do. I have the responsibility and I got the opportunity to lead them because someone had to. So yes, and let's just start off with this session. I think this is a very interesting topic that you guys picked up, and I just jumped on the chance to speak on this with you guys, and it's amazing to see what you guys are doing with this investment cell, right? The finance and investment cell. And kudos to the hard work that all of you are putting in, Satvik, Tanmay, Aditya, all of you that are putting in to get these sessions together. It's not easy to get time from people to manage a session, to get an audience. It's a very difficult task, and then to get a community going. And you guys are approaching it in a very systematic way, which is very good. So kudos to you on that front. I'll just share my screen and then we'll dig deeper into how to declutter ourselves and to focus on what is more important. Just give me a second. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Great, thanks. Now, as I started off the session asking you if you read news, if you follow news, if you listen to news, a lot of you said yes. Now, my second question is, how many sources do you refer to while looking for news? And maybe Aditya, Tanmay, you guys can also answer that. How many sources, just think for it for maybe 10-20 seconds, and how many sources do you look at when you're digging for news?
Maybe one or two. I would usually go to. I think that's at the max. Not more than
Two or
that.
three.
Yeah,
Right.
at the max, I would just watch the apps which I have my phone, or read on, or the Economic Times, or in shorts. That's all I would do.
Right. So what has happened over the years is that information has become available at a very low cost, at almost zero cost, right? Now the problem is not finding information anymore. It's about processing it and finding the most relevant information, right? So just to give some perspective, because we have the finance and investment cell people here, just to give some perspective around how information itself has evolved over the years and grown, I have some stats. So a weekday edition of the New York Times contains more information that an average person was likely to come across in his or her entire lifetime in the 1600s in England. So a person's entire life's worth of information is getting accumulated and distributed by just one edition of a newspaper, a daily newspaper. That is how fast this has grown. I'll take one more example to just give a perspective and solidify the information accumulation that has happened over the years. At the end of the World War II, human knowledge was doubling every 25 years. Now it's doubling every 13 months. And soon it will start doubling every 24 hours. Now, how does a person stay on top of information when it's growing so quickly? When there is such humongous amount of information out there, then how does one deal with it? Now, to add to this problem, we also have the algorithms of Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram that focus on personalization. Now, what happens is when you have personalized information, when algos are throwing personalized information at you, you get a lot of confirmation bias. Now, what is confirmation bias? You believe in something and you look for proofs to prove your own concept, and you don't seek alternative constructs or concepts to disprove your theory. And if you go out there and search on YouTube about, say, pro farm law content, YouTube will keep throwing pro farm law content at you, plus it will start throwing a lot of right-wing content at you. And that is how the construct is. A lot of personalization happens. Now, as a person, even if you were, say, a centric kind of a person, or even a left of center, right of center kind of a person, you move more and more towards the right wing, right? Your biases get reaffirmed. And that is why it is really, really important to declutter this, or to seek information that does not conform with your own preconceived notions. Now, how to go about it is a big question. How do we not, fall prey to the algorithms that are making this worse for us? What I do is, whenever I search for something, I just switch on the incognito mode, or I use, so for YouTube, that cannot be done. What I do is use two IDs. On one, it is left-centered, one is right-centered. Watch both content. Good content around that, with, that are popular, but watch both. Take both views in so that you can make a rational decision. Even when you're analyzing companies, there will be a lot of times what happens is you get a lot of availability bias. Now, what is availability bias? Something is thrown at you constantly, some news is shown to you constantly, and you start believing it to be true. One such news or one such advertisement that is shown to the population is mutual fund sahi hai. Every news channel you'll find mutual fund sahi hai repeated a lot of times. Your responsibility as an aware citizen and as an educated professional is to question that. Kya mutual fund sahi hai? And then dig deeper into that, form your hypothesis, and then really see, look at data to tell you whether it makes sense to invest in mutual funds or not. I'll give you a very interesting data point. When we were digging deeper into this mutual fund industry, what we found was during March, April, right, when the markets crashed, so did the amount of money that AMFI, the Association of Mutual Funds, was spending on advertising. Now, if they are not spending on advertising, lesser number of people are getting reinforced around mutual fund sahi hai. And that is the absolutely right time to stay invested in the market, or to even increase your proportion of SIP into equities. But that information, that dialogue was missing, that advertisement was missing, because advertising chases a bull run. And what ended up happening was a lot of people closed down their SIPs when they should have continued with it. So that is how the market, or that is how advertising and information and the way in which it is presented to you molds your perceptions. Right? So it is very, very important for you to question each and everything that you're looking at. Say, for example, today, I was just looking at this, Zerodha got 3 million users or something. Now, as a finance professional, your duty is to ask, okay, Zerodha has 3 million, say Upstox has 2 million, right? How many active users do they have? What has been the growth? How many have 2 demat accounts? How many have a single demat account? How many trade? How many times? To arrive at a relevant valuation and to understand which company is better in terms of being investable. So all of these things, whenever you look at any metric, it will more often than not be a vanity metric. It will be a metric that wows you, that amazes you. Oh wow, 50,000 crores is being spent on something. But as a, say 50,000 crores is being spent on healthcare, but as a proportion of the overall budget, how much is it? Has it increased from over the last year or not? Right? So all of these things become very, very relevant. So the first and foremost step in decluttering is to be really, really selective. Quality over quantity. You cannot keep reading every single catchy headline that is thrown at you. You cannot keep clicking on every notification that you get, because that is what they want you to do. Their performance metric is getting maximum number of clicks. They don't care if you're reading the whole thing or not. And more often than not, when you click on a catchy link, when you go through the entire text, it's absolutely not useful. I'm not using a better word for it, but it's absolutely BS, right? So from that perspective, it is very, very important to be really selective. Only go for sources that are reliable and relevant. You cannot keep reading some news about some industry on money control. If it is about stocks, if it is about the stock market, makes sense. If they start writing about farm laws, doesn't make sense to read it there. So you have to be very, very conscious of what you're reading and where you're reading it. So first is just be selective. Second, and this is one of the most difficult things to do, is not to have FOMO, right? People around you are reading a lot of different things. People around you are talking about a lot of different things. You're thrown all of those notifications, and there's this feeling of, having a FOMO creeps in. That, am I missing out on something? If I'm not reading from 20 different sources, am I missing out on something? Instead, have JOMO, joy of missing out. So I'll explain how we use it. What happens is, say I'm tracking a particular sector, or I am using a particular source. Say I'm reading Business Standard. What I do is I ask my co-founder Yavantika to read Economic Times, and then we compare notes. Okay, they were saying this about this here, they were saying this about that in another newspaper. So that is how we accumulate information. So that is where the community feels comes into the picture. When you segregate this, do it in groups, communities, and have discussions around this on a day-to-day basis, what you end up doing is you add value to the other person adds value to you, and both of you get very interesting information in very limited time. And it's always easier to convey something. Say I'll just tell somebody in Hindi ki acha ye hua, and say Dogecoin mein Elon Musk ne tweet kiya, it went from this to this, and done. They know about it, and that's all that they need to know about that particular thing. Plus, once we have divided the work, both of us are reading relevant stuff from both of these platforms, and then we have that accumulation of information, and we can, each of us can, sort out the information, the kachara information that is there from the whole content. So it really makes sense to form communities, groups, small groups, 4 people, 5 people, and have discussions around this. Because if you do it on your own or try to do it on your own, you might not be able to navigate that. Then coming back to how FOMO affects cluttering, it's because we feel that we need to know everything. We feel that it's very, very important to stay on top of every industry that is out there. In investing field, whoever is investing in companies in the stock markets, they feel yaar sare companies ke bare mein pata hona chahiye. But it's not true. Find your niche, know more about a limited set of things and limited set of companies than knowing a lot of thoda sa information about a lot of different companies. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but if you look at it from an investment perspective, spend at least 2 to 3 months just studying one particular industry and then a lot of companies in that particular industry, and just forget about every other company. So it's okay to not know everything. Then comes this, and this is the most important aspect, I think, that you need to read, research, and keep doing it again and again. And this is about forming habit. This is not about the quantum that you're reading, but the quality, number one, and you do it regularly. You create a habit around it, right? And not just read, research too. And what does research mean? If you are going and if you're reading about something somewhere, make sure you're asking whys around it, trying to get the context of that particular piece of information, or trying to disprove what was written in that piece deliberately, or maybe read some unbiased version of that, which is very, very difficult to find. But that is something that needs to be done for you to be able to make sense of what's going around and have a very, very broad opinion about something, independent opinion about something. Because again, what happens with personalization and all of these algorithms that are working against you is you'll get that confirmation and availability bias, and that will happen a lot. So it makes sense to keep researching. So what we do is we always think of it as asking 5 whys. If something has happened somewhere, we ask why 5 times. What this does is we get to go to the root cause of something. Say Reliance share price increased by 1900. Why? You can take 2 views, fundamental, technical. So in the fundamental, you see, okay, they acquired some company or they got funding from some company. That is why the prices increased. Why did they take that funding? Why from that particular company? Why not some other company? So we keep asking whys and keep exhausting and understanding different possibilities to understand whether that particular thing really makes sense. Now, how news people and how media reports is, it is big, full, flashy headlines, and they'll make it so very interesting, throw in big numbers. But then at the end of the day, you'll realize that the transaction is sham, that transaction doesn't make sense. So that is why it is really, really important to ask the questions, ask 5 whys, whats, whens, hows, etc., and take informed decisions. And don't believe me on this. You can just check it out on any blog that's been written around decluttering and making sense of news that is coming in, and everybody will tell you to research deeply. And this, yes, takes a lot of time and effort to do it, but when you do it again in a community, when you do it together, then that effort is reduced and you have a lot of fun while doing it as well. Moving on, when you research, you'll get a lot of numbers and a lot of statistics. And as they say, numbers are, numbers tell a story. And when numbers tell a story, it depends on the storyteller how they want to depict it, right? So statistics is a very, very tricky game. Like we said earlier in the discussion, 50,000 crores, big number, 50,000 crores has been allocated to the healthcare budget. But what is the percentage, right? That is your responsibility to ask that question. What is the percentage? Has it increased from the previous year? So whenever you come across any number, any statistic, question it. first of all, question the accuracy of the number, and second of all, understand how it is interpreted and whether they're trying to interpret it in a way to lead it into some direction specifically. So that's all about numbers. And I think decluttering makes sense because, I mean, cluttering confuses you, right? The more and more cluttered that information is, cluttered sources that you look at, you get confused, and plus you get confirmation bias as well as availability bias. You keep reading stuff and reinforcing stuff, and it may land you up in a soup. Maybe you're looking at Tata Motors, you're convinced that, okay, this stock is amazing, and you're only looking at news that says that Tata Motors is amazing. You're not looking at base documents that explain why could it not be amazing. News people will create headlines to attract you, to grab your attention, and so that you read through. But your responsibility is to read into the details and then do your own research and take very, very informed decisions. And I think that is what we do at Read On as well, where we handpick the stories that we want to narrate. We only do 1 or 2 stories in a day, mostly 1 story. And we keep it light because we believe that when a story is very easy to understand, it takes lesser time to read, and you can retain that. Stories are easily, you can remember stories very, very easily, and you can recall stories very, very easily. And they are super duper deeply researched. So that's what we do at Read On. Now I'll open up the floor for questions. Ask anything and everything that you want to ask around this, and we'll take up every question that we can. Aditya, Tanmay, Satvik, all of you can also just pitch in.
Tanmay, first ask questions that were sent to us through Google Form.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. I'll begin with that first.
How do you retain all that you read? That is a very, very important and interesting question, Priya. So for us, it's about discussing that news or discussing whatever has happened. And once you explain something to somebody, you automatically remember it. You automatically understand it better and you remember it as well. So when you have those discussions with people around you, you retain that better. Also, I have seen a lot of people take notes. And if you look at my newspaper, you'll find everything is circled, underlined. So I interact with the news that I'm reading. I jot down my questions then and there about whatever thoughts that I have, because when you're reading, you get a lot of interesting ideas around that news piece. And then you try to think, okay, they're doing this because of this, that. You think. So don't just read the newspaper, try and interact with it, and you'll be able to retain better. If you're writing in the margins, if you're circling it, underlining it, it will stay with you. Plus, discuss it with people. I think this is a very valid point that Priya has raised, because when you're reading so much and when there is so much of information overload, you end up forgetting everything that you've read. I mean, what happened 6 months ago is on nobody's mind. If I conform to a certain school of thought on certain topics or industries, what should I do to acknowledge contradictory thoughts? Specifically seeking out people who have contradictory thoughts, specifically seeking out content that is available online that has a contradictory opinion, writing down your thoughts and then challenging yourself. Ask yourself, why is it true? Can I find data to prove that this is true, or do I need to disprove this? If you go into a self-evaluation mode also, then also this will help you. I mean, then also you'll be able to make a very, very informed decision. How do you differentiate a fact from an opinion? Facts are backed by hard logic and evidence. Opinions are opinions. They're not backed by evidence. So, and when you're reading about somebody's opinion that is presented as a fact, if you do a back testing, if you go out there and do just a simple Google search on that topic, you'll get to understand that, okay, what that person was saying there is some information available out there around to prove his theory, her theory, and to disprove my theory. Is old. So you were going to take some questions, Tanmay, from the form, I think.
Yes, yes, sir. That's the I'm doing. I'm forwarding it to you on the chat so that you
Okay.
can remember. Yeah.
Is old news really no news? How important is it to read views of people you disagree with? Second point, I think we've established pretty well that you need to avoid confirmation bias, and to do that, it's really, really important to read contradictory opinions or contradictory look for information that contradicts. No news, not at all. So whenever you are presented a news piece, you need to understand the context around that news piece, right? What has happened? Has something that is being presented in the news happened before? So for example, there was this new regulation that came in that was opening up the mutual fund sector for startups. So they changed some regulations around it. So what was the story behind it? Why did they do it? What has been happening around it? If you're curious enough, I think you'll land up in a very, very interesting place, and you'll end up reading a lot, being much more aware. And yes, old news is absolutely essential and important. And that is why creating that habit of reading regularly is important. You cannot just wake up one day and, just 1 month. I see a lot of CA post-qualification CA folks do this. They just wake up post-qualifying 1 month, just before their placements and all, they'll start reading 2-3 newspapers. But that doesn't end up, that doesn't do anything for them. You have to constantly and in a piecemeal basis be connected with the world. And even if you're not consuming a lot, even if you're consuming very, very limited stuff, but stretch over a period of time and having discussions around it, then that will you'll be able to retain that as well and feel confident when you're talking about that too. That is also really important. Why read on when there are already other platforms decluttering opinion articles of various good newspapers and other independent journalism platforms like the print, really like their Cut the Clutter series? That's absolutely right. There are a lot of platforms that are writing opinionated articles, that are writing fact-based articles also. So the Mint writes plain facts, right? So they write articles that are just based on plain facts. That's their whole segment. What Read On does is make it more, make it fun and interesting. So our objective is to not bore millennials and Gen Z, to create this fascination towards finance and increase awareness, as well as entertain people, not entertain in that crude form of way, but through our stories. And we sternly believe that people remember stories. You can read a lot of articles on the Mint that Plain Facts also writes, and they write really good articles. But what they miss out on is that storytelling aspect. If I tell you a story around cricket and then tell you whether legalizing cricket is good or not, instead of just throwing 2-3 numbers at you, then you'll remember that story. And that is what matters to us, that a person, when consuming a content, understands it really, really well and can talk about it at length to anybody. So our whole objective is to enable conversations around the content that we create at chai addas and dinner tables, to make it super cool to talk about finance in a very layman language, not with a lot of jargons. Really good question. Liked it. As a cautious investor, Dhruv Jain's question, as a cautious investor, where do I draw the line between researching and over-researching before investing in a particular company? See, Dhruv, it's very important when you are a value investor. It is important to be approximately right than precisely wrong. So if you think that approximately your valuation lands, you're doing a valuation exercise, you're researching about a company, you've dedicated time to research negative things about the company as well as positive things about the company, and you find that, okay, you're finding most of the things to be positive, then you do a financial modeling, you do a valuation of the company, and you arrive at a value that is using some basic conservative metrics of growth projections, etc. And you find that the value is, say, 300, but it's trading at 100, go ahead and buy it. Even if you are off by 1/3 and the real value is 200, you still have a lot of margin of safety. So in investing, it is much, much better to be approximately right than absolutely wrong. So if you're confident that yes, directionally the company is going to do good, I am going to invest for the longer period of time, then small errors in your valuation don't make a lot of difference. If you're doing an M&A transaction, or if you're doing it very professionally, valuation of a company that's going to raise some money from somebody, then you need to be very, very precise. But if you're doing it from a long-term perspective and just investing your money into a stock, then you don't need to be absolutely right about it. You can be approximately right. How do you know you've found a neutral source? Because as you mentioned, it isn't easy. So what happens is, Anjali, if you pick up, say somebody has written something on public credit registers, it's not a very happening concept right now, but it will soon pick up, just like SPACs, etc. So if you read about PCR on the people who've written articles around PCR, what happens is they mix their opinion, right? And then you read that. But if you read RBI's base document or the white paper that has been created by RBI, you will get everything that is there. And you will also get to read the dialogues that have happened amongst people around that particular white paper, around public credit registry. So you need to seek the source, the absolute source of the information that is a relevant institution. So you can check your numbers from a lot of different websites that are there. You can check the employment numbers from websites that are there that show the unemployment numbers, the labor force participation rate, and all of that. And there are a lot of companies that have started aggregating these data as well. I can maybe share the link with you. I can't recall the name, but there are companies who are doing this. So I bookmark them and I just go on that link. I just look for whatever I want to reconfirm, and it throws that data. And if it's fine, then you understand that the source is reliable. Also, after reading a lot of content, you get to understand which ones are more reliable, which ones are not so reliable, basis the particular segment that they cater to. So as we said, money control, if you're reading about farm laws on money control, doesn't make sense. If you're reading about a stock report, stock industry, deeply researched report by money control, maybe that makes sense. Right? So you need to understand कौन से का क्या forte है and कौन से news पे कौन अच्छा लगता है. Actually, he's asking how to neutral resource. Tanmay is asking, is investing in index funds always the safe play? Stock market enthusiast. So index funds, I'll give you a perspective around index funds. So everybody now feels that index funds is the way to go, right? Today, the penetration of index funds as a total AUM, total assets under management, is around 5%. And in the next 4 years now, by 2025, it's projected to go up to 30%. Now, even if you don't believe in index funds, money will chase index funds. People are looking for easier solutions around investing. They have been sold the idea of making finance easy and making investing easy. This is very different from explaining concepts or jargons that are difficult than to make the whole process easy. So there are companies that are working on making investing easy, and the easiest way to enter the market is to copy the index. So if you copy Sensex ka jaisa growth hoga, your portfolio will grow at that, right? So that is, and it is very easy to sell. Very, very easy to sell. You don't have to explain a lot of complex things, right? From a mutual fund manager's perspective, it is easier to sell an index fund. And if you can create relevant processes around it to sell it digitally through an application, then all the more better. So that is why index funds, because index funds will pick up and money will go into index funds. I think all of the top 50 stocks that we have, or top 30 stocks that we have in our indices, Nifty and Sensex, they'll have a lot of rush of money. Liquidity will flow in, and hence they will anyway do well. So I think it's investing in index funds or putting a proportion of your wealth, portfolio, makes sense from an overall portfolio management perspective. But this is not a investment advice. Huh? Don't land me up in trouble. So what do you do to be updated with the news very properly? One should follow, read on regularly, and anything apart from that, any particular newspaper. Thanks for answering. my earlier question. Yes, so for a overall view on economy, reading about interesting topics that people are not covering, exclusive content concepts, you can go with Read On. To read specifically about the startup sector, there is this newsletter called A Junior VC. They are really, really good. Aviral writes, Aviral has also created a very good community around himself and writes really, really good content. So it's easy to read, easy on the eye. They use jargons, they are not de-jargonified, but for you, it will make sense because you are from a finance background, you'll be able to understand it really well. So a junior VC will make sense. That's a good platform. Other than that, there is the Ken, there's the Economist, Harvard Business Review. Exhaust your free reads on Harvard Business Reviews every month. They give you 2 to 3 reads. I'm telling you, you'll understand so deeply about some very interesting topics from Harvard Business Review articles. They write such beautiful articles on blockchain, how blockchain can be applied to supply chain management and all of that. Make sure you use all of the free resources that is available. McKinsey articles, all of these are really deeply researched stuff. What you see on a 5-minute read is 2 months worth of research that they do. So make sure that you're using all of these relevant platforms and reading that. And Read On obviously does this. We make sure we are reading all of this. We have bought subscriptions for all of these platforms, and we're making sure that we are reading this and we are producing quality content to give out to our readers. Is it true that the less news we consume, the bigger advantage we have? The less noisy news that you consume, the greater advantage you will have. See, if you have the advantage of time, then why do you need to go for news? Go for research reports. Read fintech research reports. Read different insurance tech mein kya ho raha hai. Read these 20 pager research reports. That is a value add to your, that is a great return on investment for your time. And what this will also help you with is, say you've read something really interesting about fintech, right? And you find a startup founder that is working on fintech on LinkedIn. Approach that guy. Tell him that these are the 4 things that I have read. These are my views on it. And these are the 4 things that can happen because of it in the industry. Are you open for a discussion? Do it with 5 people. I'm telling you, one will definitely respond. And that is how I have built relationships with a lot of people. By reading a lot of reports, consuming a lot of content, asking people to have a discussion with me on it, adding value to them adding value to me. And then you start creating a community and network around yourself. See, a lot of people tell me, how do I network? How do I, build my network? Don't do it from that perspective. Build a community around yourself and try to add value to other people. You'll automatically create a network. Don't go for network making in the crude way that it's done today, but genuinely try and whatever interests you, maybe space interests you, space tech interests you, try to read up more on that, right? And then connect with people who are working around it. And people usually are more than happy to give time to discuss things. Satvik also approached me that way, and I was happy enough to interact with him. We had no agenda at that point in time to interact. So, and there are a hell lot of people who do it. They've done it with me, for me, interacted with me. So makes a lot of sense to read very detailed research reports. How many hours do you devote daily to reading and to, I'm sorry, I lost that question. How many hours do you devote daily to reading and to which genre? So I read everything and anything that comes my way. I read fiction, I read non-fiction, I read research reports, I read newspapers, dailies, blogs, whatever I can get my hands on. And they call me the news miner for Read On. I'm the official news miner for Read On. I mine for news, literally. So mostly nowadays, I don't get a lot of time to read a lot of content. So I stick to, so right now, say I'm fascinated by blockchain, the blockchain technology and its application across industries. So what I've done is I'm added to this small group of people who are doing really good stuff around blockchains. There they keep sharing a lot of relevant material around blockchains, around the books that have been launched. One of the guys writes books on blockchains. He is a crypto evangelist. And so I just keep reading, keep interacting with them, read books around that specific concept. So For me, it's like for 3 months now, I'll devote to blockchains. The next 3 months, maybe something else, something different, something newer, if it interests me. So whatever interests me, I pick that up and go very, very deep into it. Try to understand everything possible about that in the limited time that I have. I also read newspapers every day. The Mint Business Standard must read a mere liye. I don't start my day without that. And other than that, yes, different blogs, different news. So when you have a community around you, when my team shares a lot of interesting stuff, so they know I love reading, they know I know they love reading, so I keep sharing stuff with them, they keep sharing stuff with me. A lot of my friends know I love reading, so whatever good thing that comes across, they share with me. So that is how we manage things. So if you say how much time I devote, I think I keep reading in whatever free time I have, because I just love doing it. It's like a hobby to me. I don't feel any pain or pressure when I'm reading. It's just happy flow for me. I don't even realize time kaise pass ho gaya padhte padhte. Aditya Singh, how to analyze smaller companies as there's very little information available to the average reader? This is a very, very specific kind of a question. How small is the company is also relevant, whether it is in the city which you are living in itself. So what you can do is reach out to the employees of the company, go to their head office, try and talk to people there, how helpful they are, how friendly they are. Try to talk to suppliers of that company if you can get your hands on them, and try talk to the customers of that company if it is a consumer facing kind of a company, talk to their consumers, etc. And when information is really, I mean, limited information is available about a company, then I think it's better to just leave it be, let it be, and move on to another company, because there are n number of companies for you to research. You don't need to focus on one particular company to make money or to invest your money in. So don't be fixated if you don't find a lot of information about a particular company. Just move on to some other company, maybe within the same industry. And there are a lot of proxy information will always be available. Similar size of company maybe will have a good annual report. Say you're doing paper industry, you'll have Andhra Paper, you'll have JK Paper, and a lot of different companies. So you can read you can read reports from other industries and try to derive information about this particular company from that. There are a lot of news that affects indices on a regular basis. My question is how to filter out those news which can actually be a cause if movement in the indices. I did not understand this question really well, Tushar. Can you please rephrase it to Tushar? I'll be happy to take that up. There are so many. Sure.
Sorry for interrupting you, sir. But in the previous answer, which you about all the questions, you came up, you talked about the topic of SPACs in general. So for all of us, could you please explain what are SPACs? And in today's world, where huge venture capitalists like Chamath Palihapitiya and hedge fund guru Bill Ackman, they are investing a lot in SPACs, and they are telling that SPACs are the future. Whereas if you read the news, it says, whereas mainly SPACs mean that you're investing in an organization which you get. That's why you're investing your money. So where you have two contradicting things. On one side, you have the industry giants, the people with best kind of experience and knowledge, and on the other hand, it's a logic, and it's the newspapers which are speaking. So in these kind of scenarios, how should we evaluate?
Got it. Fair question. And I think we created some detailed report on SPACs on Readon as well. Maybe I'll share the link of that article with you, right? So special purpose acquisition vehicles or acquisition companies. And SPVs as a concept was always there. Special purpose vehicles as a concept was always there, right? Special purpose acquisition companies they just have a blank check. They can go out there and acquire anything and everything. They have, and mostly you will not know. So the best thing about it is they accumulate funds from a lot of big people, and most of them don't know where this manager of the fund is going to invest. It's like a stealth fund kind of a thing. So that is the basic about SPACs. Now there are contradictory opinions around it. If you ask me personally, SPACs have gained momentum because there is a lot of liquidity in the markets. right? So you have almost negative rate of interest on dollar on US currency, and bonds in the US are almost 0% पे या negative पे भी जा रहा है, right? So when liquidity is there, whoever has a lot of that liquidity can deploy it very strategically and use any form of vehicle to invest that money, right? So the last time that a liquidity rush was there, we ended up creating CBOs, right? Collateralized obligations. And you must have seen the movie The Big Short, right? So soon they'll make the big long too now, I think, based on SPACs, etc. So because there is a lot of liquidity, lesser opportunity for these investors to keep multiplying that money, they've accumulated the wealth and created these special purpose acquisition vehicles to start eating up companies or acquiring larger companies, pushing a lot of money into those companies and helping them burn their way out. So that is the whole crux of SPACs. Now, everybody can have their own opinion around whether they are here to stay, whether not. Only time will tell. I personally think that it is a liquidity thing. Once liquidity moves out of the market, they will naturally come down. Just like IPOs. Whenever there is a bull run, whenever there is liquidity in the market, you'll see a lot of IPOs coming in. I don't have that chart on this laptop. Otherwise, I would have shown you. We did an analysis around this. Whenever there was a bull run, you would see the number of IPOs going really, really up. Because from the perspective of a seller, when would they want to sell? When the markets are at a high. And in an IPO, the seller has the advantage of timing it and pricing it. So it has dual advantage. They can price it however they want to, and they will time the market. So IPOs in general are against the buyer in their whole make itself. But because there is a lot of liquidity, there's a lot of frenzy in the market, there's a bull run, everybody will chase it, especially if it's a good brand. Excuse me. So a Burger King or something, a stock like that, people will start chasing that stock, right? So then you will see a lot of growth happening and then a fall as well when bigger players start selling it. So again, it's a liquidity question. SPACs like IPOs are a liquidity game.
Thank you, sir.
Then we have, is it recommended to read business magazines or business articles? Absolutely. If you are connected with the world of finance, investments, must read business magazines, must read Harvard Business Reviews, must read The Economist. Then there's Financial Times, Financial Express. Those are higher cost subscriptions. We buy that because for us, we are distributing it to say 15,000 readers. So for us, the per reader cost comes really, really down. So what you can do is maybe form a group, buy that subscription and share that subscription amongst yourselves. 3 to 4 friends can sit together and, buy that together. And yeah, so that is how you can approach it if cost is a problem. Otherwise, it is a brilliant value add. At 10,000 bucks a year, you get a hell lot of knowledge if you are consistent in reading it. Otherwise, read on is always there. You can read our write-ups. Thank you, sir. And I love a junior VC. It's amazing. Yes, I like it too. Varun Gauri, talking about getting information. How do I understand shares and Bitcoins better? How do I start and what all sources should I refer to for the same? See, YouTube has everything. YouTube has videos on every concept that is available. You just have to take the pain of searching. That's it. Type in Bitcoin, basics of Bitcoin, how to understand Bitcoin, watch a couple of videos there. Let your curiosity flow. Read about Bitcoins on Investopedia. Investopedia is a good source. It confuses you a bit in the way it is structured, but once you get the hang of it, it's a good source. So you can read it from there. You can read a couple of books. There's this book called Blockchain Revolution. You can read that book, which explains blockchains very, very deeply, not easily, but deeply. Then there is, so I was talking about people in my network, in the FinTech network. There's this guy, Rohas Nagpal. You can check him out on LinkedIn. You can check out his website too. And he's a crypto evangelist, and he's working with the government. He's worked with the government on a lot of projects around legal advisory. So he's very, very connected with the top officials in the government, in the Ministry of Information and Technology. He's written a very interesting, simple to understand book on blockchains and cryptos basically. So it's called Future Money Playbook. Maybe you can jot that down, Future Money Playbook. So that is a really interesting book. And I could understand blockchains and Bitcoins deeply because of that book. So full credit to that, full credit to Roas for that. Is that blockchain evangelist the bearded blockchain guy? Chris, no, I'm so sorry. I don't know this guy, but I would love if you can share his link with us and I'll check him out and I'll tell him if he's as great as he seems to be. The bearded blockchain guy. Interesting name, no? The bearded blockchain guy. Is that blockchain evangelism? There are a lot of news that affects indices on a regular basis. My question is how to filter out those news which can actually be a cause for the movement in the indices. Just for example, there was a heads up from the markets on the budget day. See, if you're a trader, then all of these news will make the markets go up, go down. You'll get that through experience. Once you are in the markets trading for a couple of years, you'll understand which news affects markets at what time and what quantum as well. Which way will it move? At what time will it move? And how much will it move? All three. But that comes with experience. There's no Ghota and Pilaya wala formula here. If you are a long-term investor, it does not matter. Don't read news about companies if you're a long-term investor, because they are quarter on quarter. So when I invested in Tata Steel, every newspaper was telling sell, sell, sell. Every trading house, every broking house had a sell call on that company when it was trading at $280. Today it is trading at $750 within 9 months. And this was not a pandemic thing. I mean, it was kind of a pandemic thing also, but the demand in China was increasing. China was growing even after the pandemic. China was still growing, and China takes up a lot of Tata Steel steel. And this is something I know because I have been following the company for the last 3 years. So, and cyclicity is a business cycle is that a business will go up and then for 2 to 3 years it will go down, especially commodity-led businesses, and then it will start rising again. So if you track all of these over a span of time, 2 to 3 years, 5 years, you'll get to understand where the industry as a whole is going. So don't read the news for taking an investment decision. Try to understand how things move with that news and how things settle and how things change. So say you're tracking a particular company, Tata Motors, Tata Steel or something. See कि वो news की वजह से move कैसे किया, whether the quarterly results that came in backed the claim that the news were making. You will also find it very funny. On one day, Business Standard writes something really negative about Tata Steel's quarterly results. 1 week later, about that same quarterly results, it writes something very interesting and very wow kind of a thing. So they keep changing their opinions too. So you have to be very aware about that and once you understand some industries on your own, then you start segregating the bullshit out of things. Our current discussions centered around fiat currency crashing due to too much in circulation, or is it a waste of time? Aditya, I could not understand this question of yours. Maybe you can take Aditya up and take this question of his or and try and understand this better. Yes, Satvik, that is the one. He has brought out Future Money Playbook ka edition 2 as well. So maybe you can check that out as well. You can join Read On ka this thing, WhatsApp broadcast list. I'll share this with you. Maybe if Satvik can just give you that link, bit.ly/join Read On. Based on Read On's post today, Europe and Australia have legalized betting and has very little money in comparison to India lost in tax revenue. Why can't India legalize it and follow similar system like these countries? What man do you want me to go out of India, settle abroad? What do you want from me? Every controversial question I'm answering. But yes, I'll answer this. So I got super interested in this because there was this Mudgal committee report that said that this should be legalized. This is a government legal committee saying that betting should be legalized. So that really opened my eyes and popped this up for me, that I got super interested in this, and then the team got super interested in this because obviously it's around cricket, it's around betting. Who doesn't love cricket and who doesn't love betting? So we had a competition in the team that who will take that write-up up. So that was really fun. But yes, I personally think that regulating it makes more sense than completely banning it, because banning anything takes it down to the shadow economy or the black market, even cryptos for that matter. The need of the hour is to regulate them strictly, but not take them underground, not to ban them, because you cannot control it. You cannot control the internet. All of these transactions will keep happening. You can keep filling up your jails. You can keep increasing the number of cases. There are already 60,000 plus cases pending in the Supreme Court. You can keep increasing that number as much as you want, but it will not achieve the objective that it should. So I think regulating it makes a lot of sense. But I'm definitely sure they have their own perspective on not legalizing it or not regulating it for now. I don't know what that is, but maybe we should pose that question to the ministries. India is planning to ban Bitcoin. Views, again, as I said, I don't believe that Bitcoins should be banned, or for that matter, any crypto asset or currency should be banned. It's important to regulate them and not to ban them. See, banning them will, number one, take it to the shadow economy. Number two, technological advancements or innovation will stop happening. And once you move innovation out of the country, it will happen in China, it will happen in US, and they are not banning it. And again, we'll be left behind in that race. So we need to make sure that we are not left behind in any of the technological races now, because we are behind in manufacturing, we are behind in a lot of industries. It's important that we create cutting edge technology in blockchain, crypto, have our own crypto assets, etc. So regulate it, but banning it, I am not a big ardent supporter of banning anything. Our current discussions are centered around fiat currency crashing due to too much in circulation, or is it a waste of time? Fiat currency crashing, I think, again, when you take away liquidity from the markets, right, stock markets will start crashing a bit. And how do you take liquidity away from the markets? You start increasing interest rates, etc., right, on the bonds, government bonds and all. So money will flow towards safer risk reward. Wherever there is a better risk reward scenario, money will start moving away and money will start moving in that direction. So I think that crash will be imminent once liquidity is taken back. If liquidity is not taken back, then there won't be any crash. I think I've taken a lot of your time. I've taken a lot of questions too. Maybe I can take one last question if anybody has, and then we can call it a day, Satvik.
Perfect.
But a really interactive and interesting session. Awesome questions also.
Just to tell the last question, it's again by Shreyas. He's telling that it's again related to Bitcoin only, sir. It's saying, but won't regulating cryptocurrency go against what cryptocurrency stands for in the first place, which is a deregulated currency?
Okay, so there is a difference between decentralized and deregulated. Concept of crypto is based on decentralization. Give the power to the public. Now think of it as elections. In a democracy, we have elections, we elect our own leaders. It's a decentralized concept, but is it not regulated? Is there not an election commission that's working to make that possible? Yes, there is, right? So you can regulate everything and anything. You can set some rules of how they will operate, but it cannot be a centralized notion. It cannot be a centralized thing. The center today cannot say that the elections will not happen for the next 5 years. That's not allowed, right? They do not have the power to do that. Power to elect your officials is still decentralized. That is the whole concept of blockchain as well, or crypto as well, decentralization. So it's not about keeping things deregulated, but decentralized. And what benefit will regulations have? is that you will have a lot more transparency and a lot less negative instances or uses that a crypto brings in or a blockchain brings in. So, for example, using bitcoins to fund terrorism, to fund human trafficking, to fund other illicit illegal activities, this will start going down. If you just include a transaction tax on every crypto transaction that happens, on every transaction that happens using a Bitcoin, even then you will be able to track a hell lot of things. And by track, I don't mean to spy on people, but you will be able to segregate it basis whether this was spent on consumer goods, whether this was spent on automobiles, whether this was spent on terrorism. And once you get, and this will help you go to the root cause that, okay, this funding came from this source because of the transparency that cryptos bring in. And then you can curb that problem at the source if you want to. You can curb terrorism at its source. You can curb bribery at its source. A lot of things can happen at the source itself. So regulating makes sense, but not a centralized thing doesn't make sense. So there is this whole concept of CBDC, central banking digital currency. Redon also wrote on this. Mohit was working on this write-up. So CBDC as a concept is very interesting, but it's not fully a cryptocurrency ka concept. It is centrally controlled, and but the features and the advantages that a blockchain brings in, a digital currency on a blockchain technology brings in, will be there. See, countries cannot let their sovereignty be questioned, right, or be undermined. So they need to create these boundaries. So I wrote something on Splinternet as well. Splinternet means splitting the internet. All of the countries are trying to create firewalls around themselves. India is doing it. China has been doing it for decades now. All of them are doing it to keep data localized, to keep data within the country, because sovereignty will be questioned uske baad. They will lose that sovereign control, and I don't think they want to lose that control. So if you ask from a humanitarian perspective, should it be absolutely decentralized? Yes, but does it make sense, or will it practically ever happen? As long as we have sovereign nations and we have borders, regulation will be there.
I think we're done with the questions, right? I don't see any questions, and if there are any questions, you can reach out to Shantanu on your Instagram. Yes, that's one thing. You can reach out to Redon to follow Redon, and if you have anything, I'm sure that you can reach out to Redon's DMs and ask questions on anything you have. So thanks a lot, Shantanu. I think it was a great session. There was nothing about thinking, but I'm sure that a lot of people took away a lot of things, and we're going to ensure that this goes to every single person in members who couldn't join us due to classes and other commitments. So we'll ensure that we all will take a look at it, and the content team for sure have jotted down the pointers. And few points I want to actually stress on. I mean, a lot of chats were pouring on in our personal groups too and my DMs too. But a couple of points I really liked, and I just want to the ones which I jot down, I just want to tell everyone was curiosity. So I think our whole conversation, not just now, any conversation Shantanu and I have spoken about, was based on questions we posed to each other and questions we always discussed and wanted to find answers for. So curiosity and ensuring that we know few things, but we go deep into it. So knowing a lot doesn't matter, but knowing few things, but left, right, back, center, and everything about that topic would make more sense for us to apply or execute something. And next was having discussions on topics and making sure that we build a community behind it. I think I love this point because of two reasons. Because FIC as a community or FIC as a club was created to create a community and a close platform to learn from each other. And next, other point which you mentioned was networking. So network as if you're building a company. So exactly again, it was completely related to FIC. So I love this point, and that's how I said, as Shantanu mentioned, we both met. We wanted to build a relationship to build communities, build community over financial education and literacy. And next was how we gave importance to the team. So that's the third reason I love the community part. So when we told about Iran and Shantanu, he mentioned that he spoke about the team. So that's something I love about Shantanu. He always gives, deserving credits to his team and everyone who is a part of him and works with him. And yes, last few points was making sure that you read news from relevant sources, the ones which they are an expertise in, where let's say Money Control is expertise, have that expertise in investment, stock market, read that there. ClickBus, read cricket news there. So that differentiation is something which actually helps us to read few platforms and ensure that we get the maximum out of it. The last point I loved was reading stories and creating content based on stories. So I think this is one thing I take away as a person who writes content, and Shantanu has given me a lot of feedback on my content to one or the other time, and it really helps me to create content in the form of a story. So there's a few points which I love the most. If you love any point, you can put it in the chat box. And that's all from my side, Shantanu. And thank you again for taking your time, and thanks a lot for being part of us. Is there anything you want?
Thank you for hosting me. The audience was amazing. You guys have been amazing. The panelists have been amazing. The audience was amazing. And this is one of the most interactive sessions that I have had. I was feeling that this was a read-on internal meeting going on, because everybody there keeps throwing such questions at me, keeps throwing, random topics out of nowhere at me. And we have a lot of fun in those meetings as well. And I was absolutely in my comfort zone right now while interacting. It felt like I'm talking to my team. So really, really interesting people. I think Christ has a lot of great students with a lot of great potential. And especially you guys, I absolutely love that you've taken this initiative up and are driving it even deeper. So absolutely amazing. And I think you should keep doing this. Don't let this die off. Create that community, because even if Read-On is doing it, we need people doing it at college levels, school levels, to really penetrate into the minds of the youth. India has 73% of its population as financially illiterate, 100 crore people. So there is absolutely no competition in this space. Everybody is a co-creator out here. So just keep doing that, keep spreading financial literacy, and I think and I hope that you guys will do a tremendous job. And just tell your creative team, I loved the poster that you guys made. I absolutely loved it. I told that to Satvik, I loved that poster. Great. I had a great time. Thank you guys.
Rest assured, sir, we can promise you one thing, that we'll be approximately right rather than being precisely wrong. That's something which is going to stay with me and for everyone's going to stay forever. This line was so accurate given the time we are in and the practicality of that line. That was an amazing. Thank you so much for that particular line, sir, and all and everything which you provided us today with. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tanmay. Bye-bye. Bye, Satvik. Bye, Aditya.
Thank you,
so much,
sir. Thank you for being here and taking your time out from your busy schedule. You don't know how it means, how much it means to us. So really appreciate that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. The meeting will be ending in another minute. So if you have anything, you can put in the chat box which you want to convey Shantanu. I will make sure that reaches him. Shantanu will not be here, so you can actually put it here or put it in the FIC group or leave this session. Another 30 seconds.
Cool, guys. You're good to drop off. Yes.
Yeah,
Hey,
guys.
good session, guys. We pulled it off. I mean, everyone came. Thank you guys for coming.
Oh yeah, thanks guys, for attending. And a Saturday that too,
Saturday evening.
Yeah.
Guys, it's still recording 1 and 2. I'll be closing it off another 30 seconds.
Was it approximately right or precisely right?
So it is actually a quote from Keynesian, who's that? John Keynes, if I'm not wrong. As much as I've read. So it's Precisely right. It's approximately right done, precisely wrong. On Keres.
Okay, I'm going to see you guys. Bye.
Done, guys.
All
I'm
right.
closing it. Thank you.
Bye,
All
Satvik.
right.
Bye, Prince. Bye, Aditya. Great session, guys.
Bye bye. Good one, guys. Chalo, tada.